All right. Sorry.
Are we done? Okay. The first slide that Dave had shows the file for where are we here? This is articles of incorporation, was filed for incorporation as a 501c nonprofit on February 20th, 1959, to promote in every way among its members and the general public an interest in and knowledge of astronomy and the allied sciences, including but not limited to physics, optics, and it goes on and on for that. The IP's newsletter for December of that year was, as you see, a typewritten affair. Julie, I think you would have been stuck with a typewriter instead of our computers. The QWERTY board. Sky and Telescope magazine in August of 1960 carried an article indicating that we had an exhibit at Conklin Pavilion in Shove Park. And in 1960, the following year, we were linked with the Fort Wayne section of the American Rocket Society. We have a guest speaker presenting physics of planetary atmospheres. Membership list in 1960 was pretty large. People of note on this list was Herb Kruger was the president. Ivan Willig is listed as a director. And we'll talk about Ivan in a bit. Oh, by the way, $6 in 1960 is worth $64 in 2024. Should we raise our dues? This was a brochure that was put out, informal informational leaflet. Board member and director Ivan Willig was a young widow who had a property that was a farm located in the southwest corner of DuPont and Lima Roads north of Fort Wayne for the first observatory. Glenn Harnischfeger built the grinding machine, then ground, polished, and figured a 12.5 Pyrex blank to 1/20th of a wave. You can't get that industrially nowadays. Maurice Crowe used a flywheel from a tractor and built a Newtonian telescope on an English fork mount. Clock-driven, it was the largest telescope in Northeast Indiana. Glenn and Maurice built a 12-foot diameter dome. They formed the ribs and used marine plywood for the skin. The whole dome, not just the scope, not just the top, rotated, driven by a motor beneath the floor. We have many photos in the archives showing them actually making the forms. An abandoned trolley car was moved to the site, put up on blocks to serve as a warm room for observing on chilly nights. The room provided enough space for board meetings and storage for equipment. Pretty cool. I remember those days. It was fun. The location, as you'll see in this left image and the screen with the arrow, the point of the arrow is just about pointing to where the dome is on the lot. The Lima Road is north-south double road you see, and the east-west road is the DuPont Road. And that site is where Walmart is right now. People that were around at that time included, this is from Dave Wilkins' slide, John Thomas, Gene Stringer, Bob Kreider in the late 60s, Phil Hudson, 1970, Dick Evans, 1970, and Greg Jacobs was there too. Greg, what was your year? What year? What year did you join the society?
You remember back that far?
It's hard to remember that far, but we'll be talking about Greg later. But dues were $9.50. I guess dues should be hiked higher. That's same as $76.64 in 2024 dollars. The Harnishville Crow telescope was not the only one that was Glenn built. This is a 12.5 f4 wide field scope, fork mounted as altazimuth on a trailer for easy transport. The observer sits on a tractor seat. He rotates with the scope, operates two belt-driven cranks to move the scope in altitude or azimuth. The eyepiece is co-located with the altitude axis so that the observer can observe while he's scanning. He planned to use it for tracking satellites and UFOs. Bert Leifer wrote weekly astronomical articles for the Journal Gazette. And for the New Sentinel, there was another gentleman, Art Welklin. But he likely provided this article to Sky and Telescope. Astrophotography Summit 1972. Phil Hudson won one of his first of his many awards. Phil is a professional graphics illustrator. He's won many awards for astrophotography, has used his talents to produce brochures, mastheads, signs, and displays, and his long years of service to the society. He served terms in all of the offices, president, VP, secretary, etc. You'll find his presence in, yeah. I can't read the rest of it. I'm not going to worry about it. I see it.
Grab this here and I can.
Oh, just grab it.
Yeah, just a second.
It's all right. Just, yeah, move. Okay. Many of the tasks of the StarQuest project. He is a recipient of the second Chris Highland StarQuest Award. I don't know what you did, but now it's not.
Just put the mouse hands, but no, don't do that. Here, what do you want to do, Gene?
Okay.
Just here, you want to roll this back up? You just want to go to the here.
And do that. Okay.
Yeah, or you could just push the button here.
I did it. It wasn't following.
Oh, wait. Do that too. No.
I'll click in it. We're there. This was Bert Leifer in 1975. He was a retired Navy sailmaker. He had many craft skills. he purchased one of the first Celestron 8 F10 Schmidt-Cast telescopes. These were provided with a tabletop wedge for a mount. I have a model of the wedge that he built, the table for it. You can look at it afterwards. That platform wedge, he put on a tripod, but then he built a cabinet so he could actually store the telescope in that cabinet, and he called it the Great Pyramid of Lifer. The cabinet was mounted on two wheels for transport, similar to our modern trash bins, and had the wedge on top. He later sold this to Dick Evans, who made great use of it. Dick Evans,
Yeah, just pull down the slide bar, Dave. Up above.
oh, yeah.
Yeah, just grab that and pull it down a little bit.
Yeah, Dick Evans was an avid observer who delighted in sharing his skills with members and the public through the years, providing programs for the monthly meetings and schoolroom classrooms in Fort Wayne. He is a recipient of the first B.J. Harper StarQuest Award. Don Fox has a German equatorial mount for his 8-inch Newtonian scope. That was a typical scope in those days. Phil Hudson's off to work the crowd. Mount Willig location began to have some problems. Light pollution increased to the south as Fort Wayne expanded. Several incidents of vandalism, that's private property, threatened the security of the dome and the celestial room. Relocation to a county park in southwest Fort Wayne became an attractive solution. So in 1976, they began to study and they estimated that it was going to cost $5,650 to move it. That's $31,000 in today's dollars. That's quite a chunk of change. However, they apparently acquired some funds. This is a letter from Dan Quayle to one of our people saying that at that time he was a congressman, and he was going to look for some money for him. Apparently, he found it because they picked the dome up and plunked it down in Fox Island Park, southwest of town. And it stayed there for 30 years. Guardians of the Dome over the 5 decades started with Maurice and Glenn, but then Chris Hyland picked it up and became observatory director for many years, for decades. The layout of it, the top view of this slide shows the dome and the shed. The shed was built by Purdue architect students recruited by Greg Jacobs. Note the tree line. The park had recently bought this property and it had been a Christmas tree farm. Nothing higher than 10 feet. Now the layout of it is shown in the bottom view. You're looking at the parking lot and you drove in the drive, drove into the lot. You drove up the gravel drive to the dome area on the lower left there, dropped off your equipment, drove back down and parked in the parking lot. The building in the corner, the upper left corner of that view, upper right corner of the view, was a meeting house that we used. And this is familiar view of the the scope in the dome, but it's not as spacious a view as this would make you think. It's still a 12-foot dome. In 1986, Halley's Comet, 1,500 people showed up. And we had cars lined all the way up that Yoni Road, and it was not that spectacular an event. Well, a lot of people came to be disappointed, but not usually. Here's an interesting thing. This is a 17-foot high or diameter copy of the moon. It's a half sphere to be mounted on a wall, created in 1854 in Germany, was picked up by Adler Planetarium, and they got tired of it, and they were going to scrap it, but Greg Jacobs found it, accepted it, and found a home for it in England. You notice Jacobs' voice, he shows up there at odd times. Think of him as a catalyst. From 1990 to 1995, we provided activities for thousands of local attendees at star parties and at the Dome. Here's the first eyepiece that was in color. As a professional graphics illustrator, Phil Hudson has provided years of service. This is, I think, one of them from Phil. About the same time, we launched the Fort Wayne Astronomical Society website. We found some interesting things going on there, and particularly a lot of misinformation. It was sort of like whack-a-mole. This is show up, and this was when Mars was about to have a close approach, and we debunk it, and then next week, and we come back around, and we still have that problem. Politics finds this apparently to be a very useful method for sending misinformation. Whoops, hit the wrong, well, let's go back. There, sorry about that. We had a dome refresh party in 2005. Left to right is Andy Butler, then Gene Stringer, Ron Kerr, Chris Hyland, B.J. Harper, Bob Kreider, Dave Atkinson, Rob Hood, Tom Kraft. In 2006, Greg Jacobs suggested, why don't you guys, by the way, this version down below here, that didn't come about right at the beginning. We had, if you notice the upper right corner, we had some rather primitive thoughts about what an observatory should look like. But Greg said, why don't you form a project? Be organized project to assess the FWAS mission and vision for the next 50 years, plan and design upgrades to programs, facilities, seek funding from all benevolent sources, implement the vision within a reasonable time frame. Greg Jacobs has degrees in museum and design. He's the person that took Chris with him to clean up the old Fort Wayne powerhouse, to promote it as a museum for hands-on science projects for the public. He coined the name Science Central. It took off, apparently very popular. So I signed on as project manager, and I created several teams: design team, fund development, promotion, programs, linked up with budgeting and accounting, and of course interface with Allen County Park Board. This is what we would use. It's called a critical path method chart. I picked this idea up from Magnavox, where the projects do things for the Navy. The different task teams are listed on the left, and then the boxes list in different areas of time in the calendar activities you want to have happen. The arrows indicate when activities in one area affect the activities in the other, and you can use it to plot to find out which guy is going to hold up the whole project by being late. So that was a typical idea for it. In 2008, the Moo Group formed. Geddes Venesiaskis is watching us tonight on Zoom. He's the one that created this. His observatory was in the backyard in Ossian. So Mount Ossian Observatory, spells Moo, and he had quite an active group of astrophotographers, and he taught and guided many people, not just here, Fort Wayne, but on the web, from Maryland, New Mexico, Arizona, other places around the United States. In 2008, we got working, and the CPM chart became a little more complex. But basically, during this year, we created a design document, which we used to issue a request for proposal to the architect firms in the area. 3 of them stood up: MSKTD, Martin Riley, and Viridian. They responded with proposals to a judging panel consisting of Fort Wayne design team members, a representative from Fox Island Park, and consultants from Purdue Ball State Architectural School. And we chose Viridian. In 2009, whoops, where are we? I went to, yeah. 2009, we received a donation of $20,000 from fellow member Richard Johnston. We chose to use it to purchase a 16-inch observatory-grade telescope from Meade, offered to us secondhand for $17,000 by Dean Glace from South Carolina. We removed the 12.5-inch scope from the dome and placed it in storage, and in its place we installed the 16-inch RJ scope. And this was the team that honored Richard Johnston. He's the gentleman standing, holding the placard or certificate of thank you. We notice there's 2 displays, one held by our president, and the other one on the pasted on the side of the dome. Neither of those designs survived. They were created because of the restrictions put on us by the park. In 2009, it was a banner year. It was the 400th year after the invention of the telescope. And people around the world had events commemorating this. We participated the 100 hours of astronomy for several days in April, and we got a certificate for it. But that's not the only thing we did. We did a collaboration with the History Center. And it was a case, they had a new banquet room up in the top of their building in Fort Wayne. They wanted to show it off. And so I think June Gladfelder was a major contributor in this, in working it up. And Phil Hudson did all the graphics. Phil Hudson also had built a quarter-size model, true working model of the Hevelius telescope. And here you see it in the banquet room, in parts of it, and a list of the people. We have a lot of photos of this, and we've got to get those photos into archives that you can see, look at, and I'm going to talk to you about that later. In the next year, we gave Colleen Quigley a telescope for winning the prize for a chalk thing at Three Rivers Festival in that year. Okay, in 1978, Fox Island looked like that. Remember I mentioned Christmas Tree Farm? Then we moved in. By 2010, Fox Island looked like that. We decided that the location of Fox Island presented too many problems to remain at that site. Encroaching light pollution, the interstate had come fairly close to us, within a mile, and the lighting there. There was a reduced horizon. We hadn't seen Mercury in years. Restrictions on building design and operations, and refusal to cut down trees. And every time we wanted to cut down a tree, there was somebody with their arms wrapped around it saying, "Not this tree." So we began looking, and we found Jefferson Township Park. Great horizons, continuous maintenance is a meadow, darker skies. 4 other nonprofit organizations were in the vicinity. Maumee Valley Antique Steam Gas, they just finished their deal this past weekend. Flying Circuits, Maumee Valley Blacksmiths, Fort Wayne Railroad Historical Society, and soon to be Fort Wayne Astronomical Society. There were no restrictions on the design of the building. But we moved in 2011, but what to do with the 16-inch telescope. How do you protect it? Build another building? Tom Craft solved that problem. He took a hydraulic motorcycle jack and he made a transport cart. The cart is in the red that you see, and basically you slide it under the arms, lift it up, wheel it out of the shed, roll it over to the pier that you see there in the lower left-hand corner, plunk it down there and C-clamp it in place for the night and operate at LTAS mode. That worked great for a few years, but that's the way we still held star parties in the open field at Jefferson. We also had, during the years, late 1990s and up into a good portion of the 2000s, collaboration with St. Francis University. They provided us with space for monthly meetings and an auditorium for public gatherings, not just the planetarium, but an auditorium. And we had gatherings. For example, John Dobson came to town one few days. During this time, we were also moving into the social media space. We're talking about Facebook and Instagram. I have an Instagram. And there was a time when Neil deGrasse Tyson came to town in 2014 talking about New Horizons mission to Pluto, which occurred in a couple of years following that. But by 2014, we had acquired enough funds to build the observatory. The concept for the design came from Chris Hyland and, here we go, Greg Jacobs, who built a model that was presented to Veridian. Veridian created the drawings, selected Robert Coors as prime contractor. Left to right is Charlie Hatton, New Haven Chamber of Commerce, Tom Henry, Fort Wayne Mayor, and I can't thank him enough for the support he gave us. Millions of dollars this man deals with over the development of Fort Wayne, and he showed up for us. Then Gene Stringer and Larry Clifford was the president. Dave Wilkins in the inset there in the lower right is showing what the new concept was. And they're putting the shovel in the ground. So the construction began. First, they had to level the site. They made sure that they built it up enough that it would be, the observatory floor would be at the height of the roadbed coming in. They're supposedly free from flooding, we hoped. We started by building scope pads. Jim Spalding was the task leader on that, and he got out his black snake whip and got Phil Hudson and Ida Mary and me to work trenching for conduits and then laying in gravel, and then we had a cement truck come in and drop the cement in to the forms. The foundation and floor for the observatory was another story. They called in a backhoe. The upper left shows excavation and digging the holes. And then the upper right was laying the forms, and those large squares are the size of the supports for the pylons that would support the upright areas of the observatory. The first pour shows the initial, and then the finished pour left you with the pylons on in the field, as well as the floor for the observatory. During this time, we started in 2006. Some of the members that we had good friends left holes in our hearts by passing away. And so we provided a place in a part of that, the floor where the control room is, to allow interment of ashes. And there was a good showing of members and family members for the people who are interned. The ashes of Dennis Scala, an instructor at Ivy Tech, Chris Hyland, James Hyland, his father, and B.J. Harper. B.J. was deposited in several places by his daughter. She traveled a lot. But Greg Jacobs presided over the interment operations for the 4 persons. Family members and friends took turns placing the ashes and covering the shovels of cement. In the lower right-hand corner, you'll see the finished cement being covered over. The subcontractor for the observatory frames was Smith Erectors, south of town. They built the frames, but then they hauled them up on site in February of 2016 and welded them together into 3-dimensional frames and used a huge boom-driven forklift to lift and maneuver the frames, lifting them into the air with that device. Quite an operation. Fun to watch over several months. They put the uprights in place, mounted on the piers in the field and also in parts of the foundation of the observatory. And the rails then, the top rails were at the 12-foot level and the lower rails at the 4-foot level. And they lifted the roof frames up and slid them into the rails on the rollers, barn door rollers on steroids. It was the size of them. And then welded support frames for the steel rafters for the roof. So the stud framing inside carries no weight whatever. They simply act as partitions to the rooms. And then on the outside, we clad them with marine grade plywood, industrial grade plywood. Inside, you see now with the roof on, we took many photographs inside before we put any wall covering in, so that you could see where the wiring was. So they're in the archives. If you want to drill a hole somewhere in the control room, you should consult the the archives, they'll show you where the electric wiring is. So we painted the interior, battleship gray. The white discs that you see that are on the wall are various um, wiring for DC power, 12-volt DC power, if we needed it. We didn't know, so we just made several places for them. Greg Jacobs found a cache of plastic floor tiles that snapped together to make a covering for the concrete floor. Originally were used for display of cars in malls. So, but they were perfect to provide comfort for standing feet and a soft landing for dropped eyepieces. And that's the control room, and both wings have that flooring. And then we installed the telescopes. It was a good crew. In this lower right figure, we have Mark Anderson, left to right. Mark was the observatory director. Larry Clifford, or Gene Stringer, Larry Clifford, Ida Mary, Greg Jacobs, and then on the other side of the telescope, Phil Hudson, Dave Wilkins, Jim Spaulding, and Dave Atkinson. And so we could invite people like you to the observatory for a meeting, a monthly meeting on October 16th of 2016. But there was much more work required before you could open for the public. And the grand opening occurred in the following year. But this is the concept to real. Greg Jacobs and Chris Highland originated the concept, and Meridian selected Robert Coors, the contractor. He built this structure for less than $200,000. Actually, it was $194,000 and some change. And he came in under budget. Good deal. In May of 2017, the grand opening was a family affair. A lot of people who worked on the observatory, they brought their families. And so, of course, we had people of import there. The dedication plaques are in the observatory now. Chris Highland and his descriptions on the rest, and B.J. Harper. Highland in the West Wing, B.J. Harper for the East Wing. And these are, I won't read them to you now because of time, but we have left to right in this ribbon cutting team, Robert Coors, the prime contractor on the left, Gene Stringer, project manager, Ron Clegg, representing the township park, JT trustee, Charles Hatton, the New Haven Chamber of Commerce, Larry Clifford, the president of the society, Ron Kerr, the StarQuest Project Fund Development leader to help get the money in, Greg Jacobs, the design concept, and lastly, Terry Thornsbury, the Meridian architect, CEO. So In September of 2019, Bollinger Foundation gave us a grant of $12,434 provided toward our project, which we said would cost around $14,000. And they provided the bulk of it. This computer system was designed by our task leader, Geddes, and we also purchased a spectrograph, and Geddes figured out the specialized hardware that would be required. We weren't sure how we would mount the stuff, but fortunately, Peter Hess was a member and a cabinet maker, so we tossed the ball to him. And as you can see him on the floor underneath, getting the cabinets, that's in the upper left there, getting the cabinets in place. Geddes is scrubbing and setting up the computer setup. 6 terabytes, I believe. And the person that Follinger asked, the engineer asked to supervise us or to vet what we were saying, said 6 terabytes. How do you need? Well, 3 terabytes for our data and 3 terabytes for offline backup. Nobody's going to lock up our computer and charge us money. So anyway, the team is Phil Hudson on the left, Peter Hess, Geddes Venestiakis, and Bill Needham. Joan Novosel is sitting beside a display excuse me, pull that down. These displays were taken through the RJ telescope and processed with software from the grant. So those are spectrographs. So this gives us access to the internet and the ability to participate with academia locally and worldwide. Example, we have rented time, correct me if I'm wrong, Laura, rented time on telescopes in the Canary Islands. Yeah, we do that. One of the things I wanted the StarQuest project to do was create an award program. And so we created 2 awards, a Chris Highland Award to FWS member who has shown outstanding service to the society, and the B.J. Harper Award given to a local person within or outside the society membership who promotes and educates others in the study of astronomy. And that I envision would be as a result of perhaps an essay contest to school kids throughout the area as an outreach to the community. So past recipients of Chris Highland are myself and Ida Mary, Phil Hudson in 2020, Joe Novosel in 2021, and the Ainsleys in 2022. Past recipients for the B.J. Harper Award were Dick Evans, he was the first receiver, and Adrian Day in 2021, and Dr. Paul Schmidt from Purdue, I believe, in 2022. We gave no awards last year. I finished before 9 o'clock.
Two more slides.
Just that. And that's it. And I will say now some remarks about this. This has barely touched the surface of all that we have done. We haven't mentioned NIAG, Northern Indiana Astronomy Group, created by Fort Wayne, Warsaw, and Michiana under the Astronomical League. We met for years at a camp for a star parties weekend on a lake north of Fort Wayne, and we had awards and activities and things from the Astronomical League. And that dissolved from under some controversy, but there are also a huge number of pictures that I took of the History Society presentation there. I took a picture of each of the chaos, because there might have been, what, 15 or 20 of them, with the growth of the telescope through the years. Those should be in archives to prove. I'm suggesting that someone, perhaps, may start making some PowerPoint programs that are part of the archives, accessible from the website for people to go to year by year and fully and pick up stuff and find a detail that you might need to know. So that's a project I'm thinking about for myself. Someone else, it depends on how long it takes me, of course. I'm done.
Very nice. Thank you, Gene.
Yeah.
Hey, Gene.
The $200,000 for the observatory, how did we get the funds?
We held fund drives. First with
Gene, please go back to the microphone.
I'll
so
go
we
back
can
to the
hear you.
microphone. We held fund drives, and we formed a team that learned and did grant requests to different foundations around. And we got some funding from that, but most of the funding came from within the society, people, if you can believe it. And we had some large donors, and the plaque that you see in the observatory with the stars on it, the size of the stars indicate the size of the contributions of the different people. And some asked to be anonymous, and so yeah, that's the way we work. Yes.
Question, Richard Johnston, you didn't really mention too much about him during the talk, but he donated that nice telescope. Who is Richard Johnston?
Mr. Johnston was a retiree from General Motors, and he had recently joined us, and he knew we had, this was, we started, in 2008 or 2006. 2008 was a tank of the economy, and foundations were saying, we're trying to keep the food banks running. But he saw that we had this going and he said, I have $20,000 that I have to give away for tax purposes. Would you really be interested at all in that? And we said, we'll think about it. For about 3 seconds, and then, but he gave us some money, so we had that cash, and we had decided that we wanted to upgrade the equipment, and this was state of the art at the time. And it was cheaper than what Mead was selling for new. Yeah.
If you need somebody to scan the photos you have, I'll do it.
I've got a scanner suggested to me by yeah, okay. Anyway, by Joe. Joe has been scanning his slides, and so I have the capability of doing it. And I've been through a few thousand slides already in my own cache. So I'll set the priority.
Sounds like something we might get more of the membership involved in as well. We can figure out a format, divide and conquer and.
Yeah, maybe we'll do that.
talk about it.
Jim, we'll form a task team. We'll get a group and we'll get it done.
We have two special guests tonight.
Yeah.
They would introduce themselves, come up to the front and tell us your relationship to the crow part of the telescope.
Go up front.
You have to come up to this
Otherwise, it'll
microphone.
never be heard. I see you, but, well, you have to be very big, because the
Yeah,
the sound just doesn't pick up without a remote microphone.
Yeah, come on up here to where I am. Yeah, our technology people just dropped the ball here, so you have to
Okay.
stand by the microphone.
Okay. My name's Paula Crow.
My name is Christine Crow-Brenneman, or Christine, yeah, that's the way it goes.
Morris was our grandfather. And we visited here 3 years ago. And you yeah, came and showed us Grandpa's telescope, which, I mean, it was like the highlight of our year, to come here and see it. Unfortunately, we couldn't see any stars that night, but, to see that scope and, to hear Dad talk about it and Grandpa talk about it through the years, it was really touching. And it was such a great visit here. And then we saw the invite to the thing tonight and to talk about the history. And I think,
We kind of wanted to come and find out more about it.
yeah.
Yeah.
Where did you come from? Where do you live?
I live in Xenia, Ohio, which is just east of Dayton.
Okay.
And I live in Dayton, Ohio.
So, yeah,
How did you hear about tonight's meeting?
an invite. We joined the thing. We get the newsletters and
Your
stuff.
members?
I wonder if for members, I'm not sure.
Visitors there.
We do,
They're-
we send the newsletter and such out, so I'm very glad that we
Because
do that and that you were able to come tonight.
Yeah, I know
Very
we
much.
all looked it up when we got home. We were all excited about it.
Yeah.
Very much,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah,
Great.
we have 2 other sisters and then a cousin in New York, but the 2 other sisters couldn't make it tonight. There.
Did they know about the Zoom link or no? Your other relatives?
Yeah, well, no, you know what? They did not,
Yeah.
because I was looking to see if there was a Zoom on it. So I don't think they did because one of them was at a meeting that she couldn't attend, but the other one up in Michigan, she would.
Yeah, the second announcement we sent out to the visitors, we inadvertently dropped the Zoom link, so I'll apologize for that.
But I did see it on one of them.
But it's captured, so you'll be able to,
Okay,
if you go to YouTube or go to just YouTube and Google Fort Wayne Astronomical Society.
okay.
There's a whole list of videos and
Okay.
I'll remember to send you a note when we get the thing up, which is probably less than a week, it'll be up,
Oh, okay,
you know. so-
okay, great, so they could see it.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
At their convenience.
Yeah.
Since it's on YouTube, so no problem.
They'll be as excited as I was when I saw Grandpa's picture on there in that little corner.
That's great.
Yes.
But thank you.
Thank you very much for coming.
Oh,
Thank
thank
you.
Very
I
interesting,
really
yeah.
appreciate it. Oh, thank you. Historic. Appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Society here, it must be huge. You
Well,
must have a lot of members.
80, what are we, 85, 86?
We're up to 90.
Are we up to 91, Phil?
Quite a few.
Phil's saying yes to everything, so we'll go with 91.
Well, thank you.
Thank you very much, and please drive safe home.
Oh, yeah, it's
Yeah.
only 3 hours.
That means midnight. You're not
know.
staying over, right?
No, but you know what? We don't do this often. And it was very interesting, so how you moved and, you know, moved around.
Yes, and move the telescope.
Moved the telescope,
Yes,
yes,
yes.
and
Yeah.
that telescope was built in what, 1960 something?
I don't know, Gene predates me on this.
1960, that telescope was.
Oh, wow, okay.
Well, if you guys are out on a Saturday, we're always open on Saturdays, but even if you, I don't know, are interested in another night, but it's obviously gotta be clear, you can contact us. We probably could make arrangements. We have people that live like just a couple miles, that they could just, they could open it for you guys on a private basis.
Well, it's good for us when we came to see the scope.
Sure. But maybe this time with stars.
Some Saturday night, just to see it on me.
Yeah, we'll do any excuse, just to go out and look at the stars, so.
Quite right. Thank you again.
Thank you.
I'm so glad you came.
Thank you. We are too.
Great. All
We
right.
have one more guest here.
I was here last time.
Yes.
Where are you guys?
We do have a new member. You could stand up and introduce yourself. Thank you for joining. Thanks for dragging along.
A couple old friends from years ago, I probably got out then, I didn't have time much going on, so his granddaughter is marrying my son, so.
Ah,
Family.
that should work out really well.
Got a lot to learn.
What's that?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions for Gene? Oh, go ahead.
I'm sorry, just on it, I hate to bring up a sad note, but Dick Evans, who was a member since 1970, he passed away a couple of years ago, but his wife just passed away. You know, a couple of people.
That was Marty?
Yeah, Marty passed away Friday. So, I'm sorry to announce that.
Say a few words.
Oh, sure, come on. Yes, we'll have to go behind the,
Oh, I think I've got it pretty loud.
no, there are microphones there, so please do. And you're tall, so you can be seen over the monitor. Thank you.
I'm the Greg Jacobs you heard about tonight, and I'm embarrassed to say that my name appeared way too many times in the lecture tonight. When the great presentation that Gene put together points out that this club has had a fabulously rich history since the very beginning, considering the number of people that are involved in it. And he has any number of photographs of all these different people lined up that were involved in all these different projects. So, you know, I'm honored to be a part of that talk and to be a part of the club for so long. There are a couple of things he didn't mention. There was an annular eclipse, I think, that we did down at the library, in which we actually had a live feed on TV of the eclipse going on, that Chris Island was involved in putting together. That was great. And Chris was such a great guy, for those of you who knew him. We really miss him because he contributed so much to the club and provided so much energy and ingenuity to it. I'd like to report that the moon, which is actually 19 feet in diameter, to my knowledge now, has been installed in the large stores warehouse of the Museum of Science in London, one of the more prestigious science museums in the world. They have, if those of you remember, Raiders of the Lost Ark, the last scene is one of a big warehouse of, priceless stuff. That's what the large scale storage is for the London Science Museum. And I've been told that the moon has a featured location in the very entrance. So it's one of the first things you see when you go in. They opened it up to the public, by the way. So it's one of the first things you see. So it finally found a good home. The other thing I want to do is just distribute a couple of images here that are not very good. If you just kind of look at them and pass them on. We still have the Harnish Figure Throw trailer scope. Do you remember the trailer scope? And we're working on trying to get it restored so it can also go in some place and be safe forever. So one of the reasons I'm passing these out, and I've got a couple more, just pass out if you want to. I apologize for a lot of the graphics on this one. It's not my printer. So we're going to start the restoration in September. And if there's any of you who would like to be involved in any way, we'd love to have you come to a meeting we're setting up on the 7th, which is Saturday, about 10 o'clock at Tech Venture. And those of you who don't know what Tech Venture is, it's basically a maker space that we started, when was it, 2008? And it's been through 4 different locations. It's now in its best location in the Fort Wayne Enterprise Center off of Wayne Trace. We're open 7 days a week, and I invite all of you to come anytime you can, especially Thursday nights when we have a general meeting. I'll give you the tour. We have 7 different workshops, including a blacksmith shop, a machine shop, a wood shop, ceramic studio, a laser engraver, a bunch of other stuff. So if you want to make something, you're more than welcome to come and become a member. So anyway, that's where we're going to start restoring. And hopefully the idea is that once we get it into basically good looking operating condition, there'll be an institution that'll be interested in having it. So you are welcome to come and look at it sometime if you'd like. So that's pretty much all I've got to say.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
You guys had that fire there next door. Did that do much damage to them? Been burned. Yeah,